Hi, welcome back everyone to the weekly podcast of AI in software development. As always, I'm your host Mayank, and today's episode we are actually doing it live from our Delft office, which is it's nice to be in Netherlands and recording this podcast. For today's episode, we are going to touch upon something which has a lot of impact in an organization when we start moving ourselves from let's say Agile and DevOps centered development to Agile to AI augmented Agile and software and DevOps centered software development. And what we see is with AI, it's not just about integration of tools into the development lifecycle, but it's changing the culture of the organization as such. So I have with me here Vikram, who is my colleague at Devon. I'll let Vikram introduce himself. Vikram, why don't you introduce yourself to our audience?
Oh, thank you, Mayank. I'm Vikram. I've been with Devon for some time now, and in my capacity, I help individual teams and organization in their ways of working transformation.
Right.
And the latest transformation has to do all about AI, not just the tools, but also how in those transformations culture plays a very important role. So we are
Right.
not going to talk about all technical today, but it's also about the cultural impact
Right.
and how AI can help them.
Right. So thanks, Vikram. Good to have you on our podcast. I'm sure with your interaction with many customers that we are working at Devon right now, as well as your interaction with organizations who attend our events, I'm sure you're seeing a trend where just providing tools to teams is not enough. It goes beyond it. The tools are just a means to an end. But organizational culture with respect to development practices, etc., are also having an impact because of AI. Would you say that's an observation that's across the board right now?
Yeah, absolutely. So we can introduce all the tools that we want to all the organizations who are undergoing the AI transformation. Tools are important. There's no debate about that. Tools are important. Right. It will also help speed up the software development. It can help in requirement analysis. It can help in code refactoring. It can help in code generation. But we need to remember what is also important is that how AI can actually influence the existing culture, and how existing culture also sometimes can prove impediment to
Right.
such an AI transformation. So if done right, and if it has a right culture, it can actually influence the culture, collaboration, it can help share knowledge, and AI can also help define success.
Right. All right. I was recently reading this State of the AI Enterprise report from Deloitte, Vikram, and what was mentioned that's 74% of the organizations that were surveyed see AI as a key factor in driving growth. Yet many see it as a tool transformation, not really a cultural adjustment transformation as such. But I'm sure, while you were working with Devon customers, you ran into this issue yourself, and I'm sure you would have seen working with a customer how the cultural adjustments were really necessary and where they brought about. I think earlier in the day we were talking about a customer where there was a strong legacy system, and we helped them migrate from legacy to modernize them in terms of, let's say, a legacy to a modern framework.
Yeah.
But with the help of AI, there were also adjustments in the culture needed on the way, right?
Yep.
Would you like to share some insights there?
Yep. So we are talking about the client who wanted
Right.
to modernize their legacy application, but at the same time they wanted to embrace AI in all steps along
Right.
the way, right? So they
Right.
they wanted to do both the things together. And they requested us to do a tools first approach, like any customer would. But what we realized was tools is not going to help them, because when we assessed the organization culture, there seemed to be an inertia
Right.
in their culture, organization culture itself. So which we
Right.
thought that it is going to impede their transformation journey as such. So yeah,
Right.
that's important.
All right. And if I remember correctly, when I was talking to the delivery lead of that particular customer, the client's dev team was experienced in .NET and Java. It was comfortable with DevOps, but was quite skeptical about implementing AI in the software development. Some had worries about it being something that they'll end up wasting a lot of time on. What happened there?
Well, so like all transformations, right? So the client had this instruction given out to their teams that,
Right.
we are going to do the code modernization, and then we are going to do with AI, and then like all transformations, we were met with the resistance, right? So we try to address the resistance, we wanted to give, say, for example, Copilot to sort of give repetitive tasks to be automated so that the developers can focus on the thing. But developers, again, going back to that organizational culture, which was, there was a lot of inertia built, and they were of this opinion that this is how things were actually done earlier. So what's the harm in doing the same way? So it was met with resistance, and they were really reluctant to adapt to the new ways of working. So yeah, that was a resistance what we felt.
So you could say there was no cultural buy-in.
Yeah.
Right? How did you bring about the cultural buy-in? Because it also sounds like then a change process, right? In that sense.
Yep.
So what did you do to get the cultural buy-in to start with?
Well, there were a couple of things what we could have done, and which we ended up doing anyways. One was some messages needs to come on from the top. In this case, the organizational leadership. So what we did was we did this vision workshop, saying that why it is important to do this organizational transform, and that's at the leadership level. But what's in it for the developers and the teams who are actually doing this hands-on, right? So I think that message had to be crystal clear, and in these cases there is nothing called as over communication of sorts. We need to communicate as much as possible, and you generally get a buy-in when teams and the individuals understand what's in it for them. So when we were able to move that past to that stage wherein that AI is not going to replace our jobs, AI is not a threat to our jobs, but it is going to free up our own time so that we can focus on more complex tasks. I think that is where we started a bit more enthusiasm coming up at a team level and a developer level to be able to continue with this transformation.
All right. So you needed that cultural buy-in, which you achieved by creating a right environment within the organization, communicating with them often, and forming the right team as well. What I heard is there was almost like a task force which was created, led by you, which went inside and start finding out opportunities, which teams to work with, etc. Provide them a clear vision with AI leadership. What did you do after that, Vikram?
So there were, again, a couple of things, right? So we got a buy-in at a team level, and we identified some people who were really enthusiastic in doing this particular type of work, which was innovative in nature. So once that was done, we had to also establish guardrails. So you are free to innovate, you're free to experiment, but that should come under certain guardrails, right? So for example, we have this Harvard Business Report, which talks about such responsible AI, explainable AI, and how we need to be transparent and explain the things when we are doing with AI. So it cannot be a black box. So we were encouraging teams to be innovative. At the same time, they have to be innovative in a guardrail, which would ensure that we are doing the right thing and also we are being compliant to all the industry practices. So I think that went hand in hand.
All right, clear, Vikram. So Vikram, what I've seen, I'm sure that the maturity of the organization would have increased after you did the cultural buy-in, and the sense that I get is after the cultural buy-in, the collaboration or the mechanisms of collaboration between teams would have increased as well with respect to using the AI technologies. If I look at from a unit perspective, that is a team perspective, how we talk about in Agile is, the various phases of team formation, the storming, forming, norming and performing stages. Do you see any reflection of that while you were doing this cultural transformation as well?
Oh yeah. So funny incident. So what happened was when we went past that initial resistance of the teams, and when they started working, everything seemed to be all fine. So we were all happy. And then teams started sharing a bit of their prompt engineering and everything. So we thought, oh yeah, everything is fine. But I think that is when the resistance started as well, because we had AI hallucinations. Sometimes team members were complaining that this is not what I actually expected AI to do. And there was some internal strives. There was this one-upmanship as well. So remember, we have this high-performance team assessment, right? So what we do is we try to introduce that at the right stages in the team formation, and that helped us to quantitatively point out where the problem is, and it also helped us to do a targeted interventions during the Tuckman's 5 stages of team formation, right? So forming, storming, norming and performing. Intervening at the right time, taking the help of the leadership to address some of the things which are outside of the team's control. We were able to navigate those resistances quite smoothly, I must say. So that actually helped us. The assessments and interventions really helped us.
So the vision that I'm getting, Vikram, when I used to play the role of Scrum Master, it was always said that if you bring in a new team member to the team, you have to kind of repeat the cycle of storming, forming, norming and performing and adjourning. So in that sense, AI is almost like a new team member that you are bringing to the team. And since you are doing it, you need to go through these phases of the team formation, because then the team will go through these phases and then eventually settle down in terms of how to implement AI. Because if you think about it, it's almost like a new team member, right? They're helping you with code reviews, giving you feedback.
Yeah, it is. It is a new member. It is a new process for the team members as well. So,
Right.
for example, sometimes it always helps to sort of motivate the team members. Like we have the state of DevOps report, which
Right.
talks about, if you do this thing right, if you apply AI in the right way, you can deploy 6x times faster. So your CI/CD pipelines, everything seems to be automated at one
Right.
point in time if you apply AI. That will motivate the team members, but that will not actually motivate the behaviors of the team members. So it's always important that we need to have these checks and balances in place.
Right.
But the happy side to it is we were able to, the 6 months project it was? I think it was a 6 months project, right? So we had the 6 month project and we were able to deliver 64% faster.
Wow.
For the same scope of work,
Wow.
which we had done otherwise with our other high performing teams.
Right.
And then I think the defect rate reduced by 35%. So that's huge,
Wow.
right? So
Wow.
yeah.
And I wouldn't say we are alone in this. I was reading this management review from MIT Sloan, and what I found there is the organizations with a more AI-driven collaborative culture leveraged AI to see up to 30 to 40% faster project completions. So I think it is something that's happening across the board. The learnings that I get while talking to you, I think, is on a unit level, we have to be really aware of the fact that AI will upend some of the practices, etc., used by the team, and we have to really treat it in a way that it gets integrated with the team almost as another team member, because eventually it will end up affecting the behavior and practices of the development team itself. And would you say this was only about increasing the efficiency and the speed, Vikram, in the example, or did you see any impact on the team morale and motivation as well?
It is, right? So I think it's sort of complementary. It's a natural extension. So you cannot have only technical practices get better and team members be dissatisfied at it. So we had seen an overall increase in the team satisfaction as well. So they were more happy. And if you started talking to the developers, at least they reported at least a 15 to 20% increase in their happiness score, in their satisfaction level. So which is again huge, right? So imagine introducing someone to the team and every other metrics goes up, including the happiness index. So which is fantastic, right?
Right. So sounds promising, Vikram. I think I had read your mail about the implementation at customer location, and I think what stood out for me was it was both a top-down approach as well as a bottom-up approach in terms of the overall implementation. In terms of top-down, it was with leadership motivation and encouragement. AI initiatives really were able to be scaled within the organization. And a lot of autonomy was given to the team within certain guardrails that you mentioned, which included letting them experiment, letting them share best practices, sharing prompts, decide how to best use AI daily in their workflows. And when both of them kind of came together, that's where you started seeing the best results from the AI implementation, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things that even we were able to learn from that transformation is we always talk about in our management circles about continuous learning, right? So we in the Agile and DevOps way, we started talking about continuous learning. But we need to shift our mindset, not just continuous learning, but a mindset of completely a lifelong learning. So that's very important at a unit level, at a team level. That's important for us. And we also need to understand that in a nutshell, if we look at the transformation, we need to make sure that we have process aligned. That's number one.
Right.
We need to be able to empower people, give them the right guardrails, and please measure what matters. Without measures, metrics, you can have subjective experience, but that will not really translate to the real world success. So I think that's something which I always have to say.
All right, Vikram. That was very interesting talking to you today. I definitely ended up learning a lot about how AI in software development is not just a tool implementation, but it's much larger implementation, something that can affect the whole culture of an organization. Before we wrap up for today, Vikram, do you have any final notes about the organizations which are just beginning their AI journey?
Well, again, as I mentioned, right, so you need to be absolutely clear about your vision as to why you're bringing AI. The success stories talk about themselves. So be very much clear on your vision, and then make sure that your teams know why they are doing what they are doing. You will get more buy-in than you could imagine, and ensure that the organization culture shifts from business as usual to a more innovative culture, because I think that is where we all need to start focus on.
Perfect. It was lovely to have you today in the podcast, Vikram, and I hope to have you in podcast again. with another client success story. To everyone listening in, thanks a lot, and looking forward to having you in the next podcast. Thank you and have a good day, everyone.
Thank you.